for me to start introducing our speaker for the next presentation. He's already here with us. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kiran Ananth is the Deputy Director General for CII Green Initiatives. He's going to be talking to us on energy and sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ananth works as the Deputy Executive Director of CII's Green Business Center, Hyderabad. And he has led CII's engagements in industrial and building energy efficiency, electrical utilities, SMEs, and most importantly, climate change studies, a field that directly impacts our cashew growers as well. He is also involved in CII's Green Entrepreneurship Council, which runs a cohort to provide business acceleration support to clean tech startups. A mechanical engineer with post-graduation in energy management, he's been associated with CII for over the last 25 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Kiran Ananth.
All right, thank you and good morning everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. We're here to speak about sustainability and the transition that we are looking at towards net zero in the processing, particularly of cashews. I think net zero is a topic which has been of utmost discussion. The country has committed for net zero. Some of the large corporations have committed for net zero. And the discussion that I am going to have today with all of you is to see how, as an industry association, as players in the industry, we could start looking at moving towards a net zero transition. Net zero is happening today, whether we like it or not. The progress that is happening on net zero is extremely fast, extremely quick. And the idea that I wanted to present to you today is while we present our products both for national and for the international markets, what would it take for us to have a logo which says this product is carbon neutral, or for this product to say that this is already a net zero product? So I'll touch upon 3 or 4 key areas, particularly from the processing side, where we can start looking at how could we make the entire transition of the process towards net zero. Now, there are 5 key areas where we are looking at in terms of carbon in our overall cashew industry. One, for the first and foremost is with the farming. We'll speak about what is the kind of cashew carbon sequestration that will happen. Transportation, what is the trend that is happening in the world today and where are we headed as far as transportation related operations are concerned. A large amount of my time on cashew processing. What is it that we as operators can do in terms of reducing our...
Gentlemen, I have a very gentle request to you all. For everyone that's in conversation, we do appreciate that this is a networking event, but we've got a speaker on stage. मेरा आपसे निवेदन है कि अगर आप बात करना चाहते हैं तो प्लीज हॉल से बाहर स्टेप आउट कर लीजिए. जितने लोग यहाँ पर सुन रहे हैं, they do deserve a quiet hall. Requesting the guests that are still in conversation and would like to continue those conversations, with due respect to the speaker in the audience, let's take those talks outside. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So the idea that we are looking at is, as processors, what is it that we could do in terms of reducing our costs, reducing our energy consumption, as well as minimizing the footprint. Now, this brings a very powerful brand. I mean, a carbon neutral tag on a product really changes the way industry looks at products, the way industry looks at the commodity itself. And today it is becoming increasingly important for a variety of requirements. I'll just take one example, which one sector has made a substantial difference. Since morning we have been hearing about the raw material coming from outside. We are looking at processing, we are looking at competition. One similar sector which had almost the same set of challenges as what we have has been the garment industry in India. Garment has got a phenomenal amount of challenges from Vietnam, from Bangladesh, from many other countries. And the garment industry in Tirupur turned around and said, we will produce carbon neutral products. We will make our products environmentally the best in terms of processing. And over the last 3 to 5 years, both the domestic consumption among the big brands as well as the export of these garments have substantially increased. the moment there is a tag on carbon that comes and says that the overall process and the product is extremely environment friendly and carbon friendly. Now, the good part is I think there is a huge amount of sequestration that already happens. We are in a field which is sequestering carbon. We are in a field where cashew is grown. And as cashew is grown, carbon is sequestered. And this is one of the big pluses. And studies indicate that we sequester anywhere between 40 to about 80 tons per hectare of carbon the moment cashew is grown. So that's the good part as far as the growth is concerned. Now, we were talking about domestic manufacture. We were talking about manufacture and processing of of cashew where it is grown. And this has been one of the studies conducted by the US in terms of understanding the overall carbon footprint of cashews which come from the place where they are originated to the place where an intermediary operates. The intermediary is countries like India and Vietnam, for example. So when the cashew actually travels from a West African or an East African country to India and goes back to the US, the transportation related emission alone is close to about 2 tons of carbon per ton of cashew. But if it goes directly from an African country to US, the emission is around 1 ton per ton. It basically means that by the time the cashew comes from Africa to India and goes back to the US, the amount of carbon emission in that cashew is now nearly becoming double. As we all know, most of the countries have committed for carbon neutrality. Many of the countries have committed by 2030, US and Canada 2040, 2050, Japan 2040, and India has committed 2070. They are looking at all opportunities by which the carbon import into the country could be reduced. And this is becoming a big area of focus. Wherever imports are coming in, what is the kind of carbon that comes along with the import? Several discussions are happening in terms of how to make this overall transportation much more sustainable. And one good news which recently happened is ships have started testing cashew oil for running the carriers. So this is the kind of focus that is happening in terms of transportation and how can that be more sustainable for the overall industry to look at. Now, the biggest emitter as far as carbon is concerned is our operations. Energy is one of our key ingredient in the processing. Of course, when we look at the energy, both from electrical, thermal, as well as the mechanical energy that goes through manual labor, the overall amount of energy that goes into cashew processing is substantially higher. So if somebody looks at a balance in terms of where the energy is growing, it has been primarily in the equipment that we know, the roasters, the dryers, the compressors, the boilers. And in the overall processing cost that you're looking at, the energy cost can be anywhere between 5 to 15% of your operations. Now, what we are looking at here is when external markets are fluctuating, when the prices are not in our control, what is it that we as operators could do in terms of reducing our cost of operations? So there have been a variety of interventions that we could look at, and each of these interventions, the overall potential for reducing the cost of energy is substantial. And based on the studies which have been done by CII as well as many of the papers published, the potential for reduction in processing of energy seems to be anywhere between 30 to 50% based on current levels. This is a significant impact. This is one area where substantially a large amount of energy focus could come in, a large amount of cost could reduce, and this, when translated to money, could mean anywhere between 150 to 400 rupees per ton in terms of reduction in your processing fee or in the processing cost. Now, there are a variety of interventions which are possible, and the equipment that we are using are not new, the equipment that we are using are not very specific to the sector, but the interventions that are possible in this sector are phenomenal. For example, we use a huge amount of drying. The compressors in our plant, can they supplement your drying requirements? The heat recovery and optimization from drying seems to be one big area of focus. Boilers, we use biomass, we use our cashew shells, but if we are able to optimize that, if we are able to reduce our consumption, I think there is substantial opportunity in terms of either combustion management or in terms of managing the steam or hot water that we use in our various processes. Dryers, a large number of dryers today, lack some automation. Automation and controls is something which most of the other sectors in the country have already moved on. Automation for dryers, some simple automation like in terms of time, humidity, temperature controls and so on could substantially reduce the amount of heat that goes into drying, and more importantly, improve the quality of the yield. The drying is more uniform, the drying is at the set temperature with much lesser energy and at a much better product quality. Electrical areas, of course, electrical is one of our big areas of consumption, huge areas possible both in terms of voltage, power factor, harmonics, variety of interventions have been possible. And in the last, IoT and automation seems to be one big area where the sectors could do much, much more. I'll speak about it in just a minute. So the next step that comes is renewable. I mean, as they say, the first step is to reduce whatever you can, and all the steps that we are looking at here in this is to reduce our consumption. The next step that we are looking at is whatever you cannot reduce, how do you produce it sustainably? And sustainable production, particularly for cashew processing, you are gifted with a large roof area. And the other plus that is happening is the current rates at which renewable energy is available today is one of the lowest that we have seen ever. The rates at which the renewable energy interventions could be possible, and these rates that we are looking at, let us say for about a 100 kilowatt unit or a 500 kilowatt unit, depending on the sizes of the facility, it is not only the upfront cost, but includes the cost of insurance, cost of investment, cost of upkeep and maintenance for a period of 5 years. This is the overall levelized cost that we are looking at in terms of a 5-year period. And believe me, this is one of the lowest that we can ever see over the last so many years in terms of renewables. Now, these renewables have a payback period varying between 4 to 6 years depending on where we operate. But beyond this 4-year period, the energy that we produce from these units practically becomes free of cost. This practically becomes free and available for you for the next 20 years of operation. So when we are looking at carbon, and there are two key elements, one is the boiler which consumes fuel, second is the electrical energy which you are currently dependent on the grid. If this can offset both, the biomass meeting your fuel requirement and the renewable meeting your power requirement, the processing operation per se could completely get transformed to a net zero operation. Net zero both in terms of energy as well as in terms of carbon. And today there are a variety of renewable options available. We don't have to worry only about rooftops. There are a variety of interventions which are available for industry to look at. And if you are looking at maximizing your renewable, this is the best way and best time probably to look at. The next area which I would certainly insist all of you to look at is in automation and controls. This is one pilot that we started in Mangalore with a few of the units where one of the automation supplier has started looking at metering and monitoring. Right now, the moment we start metering and monitoring, we know where the consumption is happening. We know what the benchmarks are. That's a cluster with so many units, but if you have to start looking at what is the energy consumption in compressor per ton of cashew processed, the dryer per ton of cashew processed, the overall energy of the unit per ton of cashew processed, benchmarks are not available. So automation first starts with metering, then starts looking at analysis, and then starts looking at controls. And believe me, this is not very expensive. For example, in some of the processing facilities that we started in Mangalore, the overall investment was less than 2 lakh rupees for the entire automation system to be up and running. And the kind of data and inputs that it can offer can be hugely insightful, because we are operating in a seasonal business, we are operating in a business where capacities are changing, and once we have the right data and once we have the right metrics for data, we will be able to analyze where the costs are going higher and how that could be optimized in a much better fashion. And this is something which I would strongly encourage all of you to look at to see where the automation could really play a role as far as the overall energy and operations are concerned. The next area I wanted to speak about is on packaging. I know I'm sure you will have a large discussions on packaging, but when we talk about sustainability in the processes, we are looking at end-to-end, right from farming to transportation to processing, and packaging is becoming extremely important. And today in India, we have got the packaging at variety of levels. There are packaging which is available from mycelium-based material, packaging available from algae, packaging available from cornstarch. All this is making the overall packaging of food and food grade products extremely biodegradable, almost at the same cost of plastic, and for the consumer gives them a very, very good option in terms of buying a food grade product at a packaging level that comes with extreme levels of sustainability. So I would like to insist all the industry players to start looking at not only the processing, not only the energy and the carbon that goes in processing, but also in terms of packaging, because the packaging material that we use has huge amount of residual life. It is a load on the landfills. So I just wanted to close by saying that the packaging is something which is becoming exceedingly important. The life of the packaging material, the plastics that we use, has got a really long residual life. And if you're looking at the overall sustainability of the industry, packaging again becomes an extremely important aspect. I'd like to just sum up by saying the processing is something where we all have a big role to play. The cost is something where the energy can significantly help you optimize on your competitiveness. We are looking at anywhere between up to about 400 to 500 rupees per ton of benefit, which can come because of energy and its processing costs, by making it one, sustainable, second, carbon neutral, and third, even looking at packaging, which will certainly make a big way as far as the overall industry and practice is concerned. Just wanted to sum up by saying that I represent CII, and CII would be happy to assist in whatever way we can in your overall journey. Thank you so much.
We have two questions for you on Slido, sir.
All right. The first one, the optimum range of fuel consumption for boilers. Again, the range of fuel consumption depends on the capacity of the boiler, but there are metrics which can tell us whether the boiler is performing in an optimum way or not. The first and foremost would be in terms of fuel to steam ratio, which is a benchmark that we will have to develop. If you are looking at fuel to steam ratio for industrial scale boilers, we are looking at anywhere between 4 to 5 kgs per ton of steam. Then again, the question is, what kind of metrics are we using and how effective is the boiler operating? The second aspect that will definitely be a factor is the operational parameters. What kind of FD, ID fan we are using, what kind of pumps are we using, and what is the overall oxygen levels at the outlet. One of the good ways of measuring your performance of boiler is to measure the oxygen. And this, in many of the cashew industries, is not measured because that is not taken as a priority. If you are able to measure the oxygen at the outlet and you see that it is more than 5 to 7%, it means that we are spending more energy. That is one quick indicator for someone who's looking at boilers and its optimization. Uh, Human sustainability, I mean, that's an interesting aspect. There is a huge amount of women workforce, but unfortunately, that is not my area of focus. I speak about environmental sustainability, would be happy to answer any questions, but I'm sure you have a very interesting set of sessions lined up during the day. There would be speakers who would be touching on that topic. Sorry, but that's not my area of work. Uh, if there are any other questions, would be happy to answer. Otherwise, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.